DreAllDay.com.
You're now tuned in to the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there, even when the success you've expected to achieve is yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, get a huge dose of personal initiative, which is the go-getter energy that moves any one of us, including yourself, to go and make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. We put all this together into one bundle, one package, one mindset, one method, one philosophy, one book, one show. This daily, yes, you heard me correctly, daily masterclass that is called Work on Your Game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day, and welcome to the show. And today's topic, either your career is growing or you are growing. Now, give credit, hat tip to Dave Woodward over at ClickFunnels Radio, one of the shows that I mentioned back in episode, I believe that was 1838, where I was telling you about my favorite podcast that I listen to, and one of the shows that I listened to, one of the things that I heard Dave mention on a recent episode, that was episode 1637, 1638. It said 18, but 16. 1637, 1638, where I mentioned the favorite podcast that I listened to. One of them was this show. And this is something that he was talking about on one of the episodes that he did, just explaining to people how he's had many setbacks and challenges in his own life. Dave as an entrepreneur himself, and now as one of the head people in the front offices of the ClickFunnels organization. And he said this line, and it sparked the idea in my mind. So Dave made it a hot line. I'm going to make it a hot song. So shout out to Dave again for sparking this idea. But if you really think about it, looking back at your own situations, those of you right now who are thriving, you know what has allowed this thriving period to occur are the periods of challenge that you went through, the periods where things weren't working, where it looked like you might never thrive again. But now things are working again because you went through those challenging periods. And those of you who are in a challenging period right now, you're in a valley right now, not at a peak. The things that you're going through right now, the growth that you will experience by sticking with it and dealing with the situation as it is right now is what will allow you to come out on the other side and be strong enough to then grow your career and grow your business and be a more valuable asset to whatever teams you happen to be a part of moving forward. So that's the idea, the essence of what we're going to talk about here today. My text line is 305-384-6894. So I want you to text me and tell me the most valuable insight that you get from what you hear today. Again, my number 305-384-6894. So send me a text anytime while you're listening to this or after, once you had a chance to really think about it and marinate on it, and let me know what's the most valuable insight you gotten from what you heard today. Going into point number one, the topic once again, either your career is growing or you are growing. Number one, your setbacks are a rite of passage. Every time that you face a setback, every time you try out for that team and don't make it, or you launch a product and nobody buys it, or you make an offer for a prospect and they just don't take you up on it, or they just ghost you, they just disappear and never follow up with you and never end up buying from you. Each one of those setbacks is a rite of passage. In other words, it's something that you need to do in order to get to the next level. You need to go through that to get to that next level. Not too long ago, I did an episode that told you why you need to experience a punch in the face. Why everybody needs to experience getting punched in the face is a rite of passage, so that you know what it feels like. And since you're not going to die from it, most people don't die from getting punched in the face. Now that you've been through it, now you aren't so afraid of it. Now you could deal with the next person who might feel the next situation or person that feels threatening to you. You're not as afraid because you know what the worst possible outcome is, at least if they're just using their hands or it's just some kind of red pill information. Because again, the punch in the face could be metaphorical, not actual literal punch in the face. Now that you know that you can deal with it, you know you can survive it, it doesn't bother you as much. That's what I mean when I say every setback is a rite of passage. Playing a sport, for example, any sport that you play, as you move up in levels, you will come against an opponent who is going to kick your ass. Right? That's going to happen. If you're in any type of hand-to-hand combat sport, you're going to go up against somebody who's just better than you, and they're just going to kick your ass all over the ring or the octagon, wherever your sport is. You're playing basketball, you're going to come up against a player who's just better than you. They're just going to score all the points on you, and you won't be able to do anything. If you play football, you're going to come up against a player who you just can't tackle, or they are knocking you backwards every time they hit you, and you can't do anything with them. They're just kicking your ass all around, all up and down the field. This is going to happen. It happens in sports all the time. In the business world, you are going to get beat up. There's a guy I heard talking about as a business coach, or there's a guy I heard talking about, he talked to a business coach, and the business coach was asking this business owner, who was a prospect of the coach, He was just asking them, tell me about your background, tell me your story, tell me the things you've been through. And the entrepreneur started telling the business coach all the stuff he'd been through, the times he succeeded, the times he failed, et cetera, et cetera. And the business coach said, okay, you're somebody who I can work with because you've been through a cycle or two. And the entrepreneur said, what do you mean a cycle? What are you talking about? And the business coach explained to him that a cycle is when a entrepreneur starts a business or starts some type of venture and is doing its thing, whatever it's doing, but then it completely fails, falls flat, and the whole thing just dies off. The whole business dies off, and the entrepreneur now has to start all over again and start with a brand new idea and a clean, fresh slate. And the business coach explained to the entrepreneur that he as a coach only liked working with people who had been through at least one cycle, people who knew what it felt like to reach success and then lose all of it and then had to start all over again. And the business coach said, I didn't like working with anyone who hasn't been through that before because they don't really understand what it's going to be like yet until they go through that cycle. And what he was explaining is the same thing I'm telling you here, which is that rite of passage. Dealing with those setbacks, dealing with those failures, dealing with the times that it looks like you are just down on your ass or on your face and nothing's going to work, and most of the people around you are people who can see what you're doing or not doing, don't think you're going to get up from it, don't think you're going to come back from it, pretty much think it's over for you. But then you dealing with that is what gives you the power and gives you the rite of passage to move up and come back and create that success. Things that you must go through to grow yourself as a person in order to become the person who can create that success, who can grow a business, who can have that thriving career, who can have the family that you want. You have to go through some situations where you thought you were about to get it, but then you didn't. Where it looked like it was all about to be in your hands and then it just slipped right through your fingers, or somebody else snatched it away, or the whole thing just disintegrated and disappeared right before your eyes. You need to go through that to build the internal strength, to build the mental toughness, to have dealt with the third day situations to where now you can move past it. Now you know what that feels like. Now you're ready to move on to the next level because you've been through it before. In the sports world, you hear people who are sports analysts or sports journalists talk all the time about a young team that may be very talented and very skilled. They get up to the point where it looks like maybe they'll be able to compete for the championship, even though the team seems very young. It seems like maybe it's a year or two early for them to compete for the title, and they're going to go through a heartbreaking situation where it looks like they're about to win, but then they end up losing. Not because they didn't have the skill or the talent, but because the other team just had a little bit more guile, a little bit more veteran savvy. The other team just pulled out some old man tricks on them that the young guys didn't know about yet. And that setback, that heartbreak, is what builds the mental toughness of that young team so that the next time they come around, they're ready to actually do what they need to do and win that championship. And it usually happens all the time in the sports world, individual sports and in team sports. These are the rites of passage you go through to be strong enough and be good enough to deal with them. The next time they come around, now you've seen it before. Now you're good. The rainy days are what make the sunny days feel better. Right now, as I'm recording in South Florida, it was nice earlier this morning, about 80 degrees at 6 o'clock in the morning. Then we had a couple of thunderstorms that came through. They came through in waves for about 2 hours. You get a wave of thunderstorm, then it was quiet and sunny for a while, then another wave, then quiet and sunny, then another wave. But those rain showers, even though if you're doing anything outside, you probably don't want to get rained on, those rain showers are what make the sunny days allow us to appreciate them more. Right now it's sunny. There are a few clouds in the sky, but it's a sunny, cloudy day, and it looks and feels great. But if we didn't have that rain come through, we wouldn't appreciate the sunny day as much because we would get too used to it. So the fact that it goes away every now and then makes us grateful for it. The fact that day turns to night makes us appreciate the day and the night as well. So you got to go through one situation in order to get to the other situation. Why do any of us, when you think of it, when you have reached a really big milestone in your life, or if you see someone reach a big milestone, you see an athlete win a championship, or you see an actor win some kind of whatever the big award is in the acting world, or a musician win a big music award and they're getting all this recognition for it. Why do people get so emotional when they win those awards? You see a sports player win the MVP, or they win the championship, or they get they make it to the Hall of Fame, or they get their jersey retired, they get a statue, and people get so emotional. Why do we get so emotional when we reach big milestones in our careers and our businesses? We don't get emotional because the success feels so great. I mean, everybody likes to feel good. That's not the reason we get emotional. The reason that we get emotional is because in the moment when we're being recognized for our accomplishments, we remember all the losses that we went through. We remember all the setbacks that we went through and how those times might have looked to us as if we would never get to the point that we're being handed a trophy, that we're winning a championship, that we're having our jersey retired, that we reached a certain milestone in our business, or we've reached a certain peak where now we're being recognized as one of the best at what we do. We get emotional because we remember the setbacks. We get emotional when we reach the peaks because we remember being down in the valley. And when you're down in the valley, the peak looks so far away that when you do finally get to it, you remember how it felt like you would never get there. So this is why your failures and your setbacks are a rite of passage. You need to go through them to build the internal fortitude to get to the top of that mountain. Point number 2. Today's topic, once again, is either your career is growing or you are growing. Now, why am I saying, this is point number 2, to answer this question, why am I saying it as if it's an either or? Can't you grow as a person and grow your career and grow your business at the same time, Dre? Why does it have to be, why are you saying it as if it's an either or proposition? And I'm going to answer that question right here. Your personal growth and your career growth usually do not happen at the same time. If you think about it from your own life and situations. And when I thought about it myself, I realized that this is accurate. Most of the time, either I was growing as a person and learning because I was dealing with setbacks, or I was just dealing with a lack of traction. Things just weren't popping off or working the way that I wanted them to work, or maybe I didn't even know how I wanted things to work, and no wonder it wasn't working. Either that was happening, or the other thing that could be happening is things were working and growing. And in my business and in my career, I was making advancements, but during those periods, I'm not really putting a lot of time into working on myself because I got to focus on the growth that is happening in front of me. So usually it's one or the other happening at the same time. When things are popping off for us, business and career wise, you are utilizing the skills that you have already developed and making those skills produce results for you, right? And during the periods when you're producing results, you're not really adding to your game so much because you got to use the game that you already have to make sure you can serve the moments that serve the opportunity that is right there in front of you. It just makes sense. It's not that you're doing anything wrong by not working on your game, but there's a time in life to plant the seeds, and there's a time in life to harvest the seeds. And you can't do both at the same time. In the summertime, you plant all the seeds, and then in the fall, you harvest what you planted. Then in the winter, you let the soil replenish itself. Then in the spring, you get new life, and then you do it all over again. But you don't do all of those at the exact same time. And when things are not working in your business or in your career or in any area of your growth, that's when you're working on your game so you can figure out what the hell the problem is, and or start working on skills and adding skills to your game so that you don't have this problem ever again. And when you think of an athlete, for example, in the off season, what do athletes do? We get ourselves in shape. We allow our bodies to repair. We decide what skills that we need to add to our game. I remember after my freshman year of college, I realized during my freshman year of college that sometimes an opponent who was physically stronger than me could use their strength against me, and it'd be easy for them to score on me or easy for them to stop me because they could just use their strength to stop me from doing what I wanted to do, or use their strength to do what they wanted to do against me, and I couldn't really stop them. So I realized, all right, in the off season, I need to get in the weight room and start lifting weights. But during the season, you can't really get into a strong strength training program or a steady one, consistent one, because you had all these games and practices and things you need to deal with. The team needs you to deliver with what you do have. In the off season, as soon as that season ended, my freshman year of college, I realized, all right, let me get in the weight room. And I went in there and I started working on my strength so I can get bigger and stronger and faster, hopefully jump higher, all of those things. But I couldn't really focus on that during the season because during the season, I needed to use what I had to help the team. In the off season, the team didn't need me. There were no games. So I could focus on building myself and make myself a more valuable person. But I couldn't do both at the exact same time. So when things are not working, you work on your game, figure out what the problem is. So the athletes in the off season, we all do this. We add to our games, see where the holes are in our game, maybe talk to your trainer or talk to a teammate or talk to your coach or consult game film, figure out where your weaknesses are and say, okay, this is the parts that I'm going to work on now. All right, next time I'm going to work on this. Then I'm going to add this to my game. Then I'll add this to my game. Any great athlete, every off season, in between seasons, they're adding some new wrinkle to their game, or they're figuring out some way to stay as sharp as they can with their game. So as an athlete is growing, they should be adding to their skill sets year after year. And then when they get to the point that maybe their prime years are done, but they're still playing, you think of somebody like Michael Jordan in his later years playing, or Tom Brady playing in NFL right now, or someone like LeBron James playing in the NBA right now. They're not in their prime athletically anymore, but they're still a very good player. They got to do everything they need to do in the offseason to make sure they can stay at that level so that they don't slowly decline or rapidly decline like a lot of athletes do when they get on the other side of that peak, the other side of their peak athleticism. But you do that in the offseason. And if those athletes, those older athletes, the Tom Brady's and the LeBrons, at least at this stage in their careers, as of the date of this recording, if they're not doing those things in the offseason to stay at that level, they will rapidly fall off. And this is why you see a lot of older athletes, they get a lot worse, a lot faster. They get a lot worse fast because they're no longer doing that work. The best athletes keep doing the work so they can stay at that level or even get better. But you add to your game in the offseason, but your career isn't moving in the offseason. Offseason, you can't win a championship in the summertime when you play basketball. In football, you don't win any championships in the summertime. You win your championships during the season when you're playing in the games. But unless you do the work to add to your game in the offseason, you won't be good enough to be on the field during the season. So they both serve each other. And then what you do on the field during, let's say, the fall and the winter in the NFL as a football player or a college football player, those things that you deliver with help you get to the next level. Then in the offseason, okay, you know what's going to be expected of you next season, and you know what happened the previous season. Now you get with your trainer and you get with your teammates and you work on your game so that next season you can perform at an even higher level, because this is what professionals do. There are no games to play in the offseason. You can't win anything. And in the season, you don't have enough time to work on skills, so you just show off what you already have. And that's when you get the recognition. So they both play off of each other. Again, this is why you need the off season. This is why you need the in season. And when I say off season and in season, let me be clear. For those of you who are not athletes, the off season for you is the times when things are not quite working. Things are not quite flowing. You're not quite getting the results you want. That's when you're working on your game so you can be better. The in season is when things are working, when you are getting the phone calls, when people are responding to your advertisements, when people are converting off your sales pages. That's when you are delivering. Now you got to deliver to those people who wanted you and give them the game that they signed up for. And these seasons come and go. These things go in waves in this way. And if you miss either one of these, then you'll be doing all this information gathering and getting smarter. And at least you think you're getting better, but you don't get a chance to deliver it if you spend all your time in the off season. But if you spend all your time in the in season, you deliver, but you're not making yourself any better. You're not evolving. You're not improving. Eventually, people get tired of the same old that you've been delivering. And now you're going to be forced into the off season because nobody wants what you've been offering anymore. They already got all of it. So now you need to go and develop something new. You need to evolve. So this is how the in-season and the off-season, metaphorically speaking, serve each other. Point number 3. Today's topic, once again, either your career is growing or you are growing. What does all this mean? It means that as your career and business grow, you must be sure to take time to refocus and reinvest in your own personal growth so that you and your personal growth can keep up with your career and business growth and your family growth. Anything that is growing in your life outside of yourself, you got to make sure you are growing internally so that you can keep up, not only keep up, but ideally keep ahead of the growth that is happening in your life. If you go from running a business is making 50 grand a year to a business is making 500 grand in a year, you better hope that you have a significant amount of personal growth that comes with it, because your business is now doing 10 times what it was doing before. Have you grown yourself 10x in that same period? Because if you didn't, then one of two things is going to happen. Either that business is going to roll you over, it's just going to blow you over because you can't keep up with it. You're not at the level to do so. Or you're going to pull the business back down to that 50 grand level because no entity can what's the word I'm looking to? Ascend higher than a level of its leader. If the leader's a 50K person, you're going to have a 50K business. You put a 50K person at the head of a $500,000 business, either that person will get blown out the water, so where they're not the leader anymore, or they'll pull the business back down to the level that they're at. This is how it works in life. So you must make sure you're always reinvesting so you can keep up. And when you are not having a ton of progress, that's the time that you utilize to grow yourself. Then you go out in the field and apply what you've learned so you can see how it works. So don't become a professional information gatherer, a pig, just taking in information but never applying it, never actually using it. And don't just apply information but never reinvest in yourself. Both of these are necessities. You need a combination of both. I get young people often will ask me in questions like this, which one should I do? Do I need to really work on my game and get better, or do I need to go out and play games and show what I can do? And again, I'm using those metaphorically. It doesn't necessarily have to be about playing a sport. And the answer is you need both. You got to show your game and you got to keep developing your game. Because once people see your game, they're going to game plan for it. They're going to be ready for it. Your opponents, that is. and people are going to get used to seeing it, you're going to need to evolve, because the competition is not going to stay the same way you don't stay the same. But the competition is getting better, so they can go against you and slow you down. You got to make sure you're getting better so that you have a counter to their counter. All right, this is the chess match of all of life. Let's recap today's class, which is either your career is growing or you are growing. Point number one, your setbacks are a rite of passage. These are things that you must go through in order to become the person that you need to be. Who do you need to be? Like we talk about my book, Mirror of Motivation, which you can get for free at mirrorofmotivation.com. Who do you need to be in order to do what you need to do? Those rainy days, those rainy periods, being at the valley is what allows the peaks to feel so good. It's the reason why people get so emotional when they reach high levels of success in that moment that they're being recognized for it, not because they're overwhelmed with joy, but because they know what it felt like. They remember what it felt like to be at the bottom. Point number two, your personal growth and career growth usually do not happen at the same time. Usually when things are popping off for you in your career, you are utilizing the skills that you already have because that's what's being demanded of you. When things are not working and no one's demanding you, that's when you work on your game and you get better so that you can put yourself back in demand all over again. This is like the athlete. They get the recognition in the season, they develop their game in the off season. You usually are not doing both at the same time. There are no championships to be won in the off season. Point number three, what all this means is as your career and business and your family and your relationships grow, you got to be sure that you take time to refocus and reinvest in your own personal growth so that your growth keeps up with the growth of the things around you. When you're not having a ton of progress, that's the time you grow yourself. Then you go out and apply what you learned so you can see how or if it works. Don't just take it in and not apply it, and don't just apply it and never reinvest. You need both at the same time. You want some help with this. So this is something that you feel like you need some guidance, or somebody can show you, all right, these are the steps you need to take in your particular field to go to this level, and that. Send me a text. My number is 305-384-6894. Again, 305-384-6894. Work on your game. Dre all day.